Okay, good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding in the portion of Chaye Sora. Today is Thursday. We're holding on chapter 24, verse number 53, in the fifth reading of this week's portion. Ayetze Eve Kli Chesed. And the servant Eliezer took out articles of silver, Kli Zav, and articles of clothing. Articles of gold, articles of silver, uvegadim and clothing, vayitel Rivka, and he gave it to Rivka. Umigdanis nasan lachia v'ima, and wonderful fruits he gave to her brother and her mother. Now she says this is the same meaning as mugdanim, delectable fruits, fine fruits. He brought with him various fruits from the land of Israel. And they sat down to eat and drink. And the men that were with him. And they went to sleep. They got up in the morning. And he said, time to go home. Now she says, whenever it says Lina, it usually refers to one night's sleep. And her brother and her mother said, let this girl stay with us for a year. 10 months. Let us stay for a year, 10 months, and then we'll send her. Now she said, what happened to Besuel? So, because Besuel, the whole medrash, Besuel, the father of Rivka, wanted to oppose this whole match. He figured out a way to kill Eliezer, and an angel came and killed him. So he was out of the picture. Yamim is a shana, is 1 year. Yamim Tigalos, as it says, a period of redemption will be and so we find it customary to give a girl 12 months before marriage to provide herself with jewelry, to get herself all the needs of the house. So we give them time. We give usually time. Usually it was accustomed to give a year between the engagement and the marriage. They took a year to ultimately get married. It also is 10 months. Should I suggest that the Yom means literally days? Well, actually, it's unusual for people to request a small amount and should not agree to give them a greater amount. Usually start with a greater amount, then you go to a small amount. That's why Yom must be a year. 12 months. And then he said, okay, not 12 months, 10 months. And he said to them, no, don't hold me back. Hashem itzliach daiki. God made successful my ways. Send me out, send me. Let's go. That's it. I'm here. I want to go back. And they said, let's call the girl. And let's ask her what she wants to do. You want to stay a year or go? Well, she says, from here we learn that a woman should not be given to marriage without her consent, even though she was a child at that time. According to the Medrash, she was 5 years old. So she was a child. She was not Rivka, and they called Rivka. They asked her, do you want to go with this guy? She said, I will go. She says, me. If you're asking me, I'm going. And if you don't want, I'm going to go anyway. I'm getting out of here. So they sent off Rivka, and their sister. And they sent her off with her nurse. He sent her off with Avram's servant and with the men that he came with. And they gave a blessing to Rivka. And they said to her, our sister, you should grow into thousands of merits. And may you descendants take possession of the cities of their enemies. Rashi says, may your descendants receive that of the blessing that is set to Avram on Mount Moriah. And I will greatly increase your offerings. May it be that God's will that those descendants come from you and not from another woman. Because again, even though we know that that Yitzchak didn't marry any other woman. He only married one woman. Out of the three patriarchs, Yitzchak was the one who married one woman. Avram had two wives. Yaakov Avinu had four. Yitzchak only had one. So Rivka stood up with all her maidens. She took along a group with her. And she rode with the camels. She went after the man. And the servant took her. And he set out. Verse 62. Yitzchak had just come. He was on his journey back from Ber Lachirei, and he was living in the southern region. What was he doing in Ber Lachirei? He went to bring back Hagar so that his father shouldn't be alone. His father was alone, so he went back to pick her up, to bring her back, that he should marry Hagar again. Near that well, as it says, Abram journeyed from there to the southern region, and he settled between Kadesh and Shur. And there's a well, and there's a well situated there. As it says, between Kadesh and Shur, there's this well. So Yitzchak went back to the south of the country, and he picked up Hagar, and he said, okay, I need you to come back to Avram. I need you to come back to my father. You should marry him again. And as we know, he had another 6 children with her. Yitzchak went out to pray in the field. Lifnei Erev in the afternoon. And he looked up, and he saw, wow, this whole caravan of camels are coming. Rashi says, Lo suach loshen tefillah. Lo suach usually means to pray. He went out to pray, and therefore the Gemara says that Yitzchak established the prayer of Mincha. He went out, Leis Erev, in the afternoon, early evening, before sunset, he went out to pray. And here we have the prayer of the afternoon. Tisa Rivka say now, and Rivka lift up her eyes. Matedes Yitzchak, and she saw this man Yitzchak. Atipa Malagomal, and she slid part way off the camel. Rashi says, what happened? Matedes Yitzchak, Rasa Isa Hadir V'Tor B'Fanei. He saw how majestic he was astonished. He was like a very majestic, an aura was around him. Vatipa, she let herself move down towards the ground. As Onkelos translate Vasis Rachni, because Vatipa means she fell. Therefore, Onkelos translates that she fell off she slid herself off of it. She leaned down towards the ground, but did not reach the ground. Similarly, Onkelos translated, please tilt. She tilted. She bent down. So we see the word by Yipel over here does not mean she fell. And the similar vein, it says, is by Yipel, if falls, he's not come thrown down, which means that even if it will incline towards the earth, it will not touch the ground. So that's a pasuk in Timah. Verse number 65. She said to the servant, who is this man that's walking in the field? The Krasena towards us. And the servant said, Who Adeni? This is Yitzchak. This is the guy you're married to. You're going to get married to. Batika Chatzoy Batikars. And she took her veil and covered herself. This is the custom to cover a kala before the chuppah. Because now they're going to chuppah, right? They're going to bring her to that he would marry her. So here you see that Rivka covered herself. She took a veil. She covered herself. Batiskas, Lashon Batispoil, which expression past the meaning. Verse number 66. And the servant told to Isaac all that he had done, the whole story. Now she said he revealed to him the miracles that happened to him, all these unbelievable miracles that happened to him in this story. The Kofla as the earth shrunk. He got there in no time, and all the Shizam and Rivka, and he made a prayer, and Rivka came out. Everything was divine providence. It was like unbelievable miracle after miracle. Verse 67, Vayaveo Yitzchak ha'ala Sarah imay. And Isaac brought Rebekah into the tent of his mother. Vayikach es Rivka, and then he married her. Vatila Elisha, and she became his wife. Vayaheva, and he loved her. Vayinachem Yitzchak arech imay, and Yitzchak was then consoled over the loss of his mother. She says the phrase is superfluous. It's written to indicate Rebekah's merit. Because it says double time. It says Vayikach. He brought her into the tent, and she was his mother's son. In other words, she became exactly like his mother's son. For as long as Sarah was alive, the lamp would remain lit in the tent from one Shabbos Eve until the next. When the miracles happened in Sarah's tent, that whenever she lit the candles on Friday afternoon, it would burn a whole week. And also there was a blessing in the dough, that whenever all her dough that she made for Shabbos, it was always was a blessing in it. It was always warm and healthy, etc., etc. And the cloud constantly hovered over the tent. It was a cloud of glory that always was over the tent of Sarah. But since she died, it all disappeared. And when Rebekah came, they resumed. In essence, he saw that, he met this girl. He heard she's a wonderful girl, but he was a holy man. He was a person that was a very holy individual. And how is he married? How is he marrying a girl? How does he know that she's as holy? She's going to be a holy individual. She might be a wonderful person, but will she fit that concept? Will she continue the patriarchs? And he saw right away that not only was she was a special girl, but she was as holy as his mother. It's natural that as long as a man's mother is alive, he's attached to her. And once she dies, he finds consolation sold in his wife. And that's what so he was missing his mother, and then brought her back when Rivka came. It was the continuation of his mother. And that completes the Chumash for today. We continue the 29th letter of the Alter Rebbe, Igeres HaKodesh. We are slowly coming to the end of Tanya as we, this Shabbos is Shabbos Mevarchim, Yutes Kislev, the month of Kislev. So we are marching towards the end of Tanya and starting off again the beginning. This is the meaning of the statement in the sacred book of the Zohar, Zohar HaKodesh, Parsha Pekudei, in the portion of Pekudei, Inun Avdin Tov, the good deeds, the mitzvahs, which man does. Barnash, what a person does in this world, Moshchi min hahara deziva ila lavusha. Which man does elicits a garment from the light of the supernal splendor, from the level of Kesed, from the level of the crown. And also the Zohar concludes they experience the pleasurable thirst, meaning they experience pnimius hakesed. Not only they experience the outer aspect of kesed, which is ratzain, will, they experience the inner aspect of kesed, the crown, which is tainug. Right? So you remember all these things. I got to remember this Kabbalistic wordings. Though there the Zohar speaks of the lower Gan Eden. Why? That we're in the lower Gan Eden. We know in the Zohar and in Chassidus, Kabbalah, that there's an upper Gan Eden, there's a lower Gan Eden. There's a higher level of Gan Eden where Tzaddikim are, and there's a lower Gan Eden where everybody is. So even Gan Eden there is not equality, my friends. Everybody goes to his station in Gan Eden. And it's in a way less equality in Gan Eden than over here, because over there, you cannot get out of your station. You have to have, that's why we try in this world to push a person above his station. You should have an aliyah. That's what we call the aliyah in the sham. You should go above a station. He cannot go above a station. If he's stuck in a station, and he's not allowed in any other places. Only on Shabbos, it says on Shabbos, all the shamas go to a higher station. But then on Motzei Shabbos, they're all sent back to the station in Gan Eden. So there's Gan Eden Tachten, there's Gan Eden Elyon, there's the upper level of Gan Eden, there's the lower level of Gan Eden. And if you ask me what the exact way that is, I don't want to find out because I want to stay in this world. So don't ask me exactly the upper level of Gan Eden, the lower level of Gan Eden. And none of us should want to find out yet where it is. So we'll learn about it in the Chassidus. So the Zohar speaks of the lower level Gan Eden where the garments derived from truly practical mitzvahs, so that they result not from the supernal will, they're actually from action. So you know, we learned this over and over again, that you have the concept of action, machshava, dibur, maisa, thought, speech, and action. The lowest level in a human being is action. But we said, right? So it's action, because action is a physical thing, and then thought and speech is more elusive, and thought is even more totally spiritual. So you have it, and everything you have the machshava, dibur, maisa. So the mitzvah too also you have machshava, dibur, maisa. You have the thought of contemplating something, speaking about something, and doing something. Different worlds. And therefore, ultimately, the physical response in Gan Eden is a lower level because it's connected to action. But in the upper level of Gan Eden, the garments derive from the love. Oh, that's a much. So therefore, you understand now that if we want to reach up, if we're worried about Gan Eden, if anybody's worried about paradise, he needs to start thinking now about it. That means that he not only should do mitzvahs, he should have rusa deliba. You should do it out of love, because that's a higher level in Gan Eden. You're gonna go to a higher level in paradise because you're gonna have rusa deliba. You're gonna have the devotion of the heart. And if you really want to go higher, you have to have the devotion of the mind. So there's three things: there's the devotion of the action to do, and there's devotion of the heart, love and fear of God, and then this concept of contemplation, Torah. The aspect of the knowledge and the wisdom of Torah. And in essence, if you're now worried about your future paradise, you better start working on this now. And love and devotion of heart with respect to Torah and prayer, which states in the Zohar. So the Zohar says, the higher level of Gan Eden is self-understood. The concept of where you do your mitzvah with Ava. So you can do the mitzvah, you can do the commandment out of dust, out of action, and then you can do the commandment with love of God. And then you can do the commandment. The Zohar states that once the soul possesses, while in the lower Gan Eden, the garments of mitzvahs that derive from the physical action, and then they rise to the upper Gan Eden. However, this devotion, whence the garments derive, refers to the devotion one's occupation with Torah for its own sake, out of love of God. And then you have the concept of kavana, of machshava. The concept of kavana, which is a higher concept in a person's service of God. Mitzvahs, Talmud Torah, and then the commandment of study of Torah. Right? Talmud Torah, connected kulam. Now you understand what it says. The learning of Torah is above and beyond everything. Because the Torah is the wisdom of God. What greater way can a person connect to God in this world? In the upper world is through Torah, is through learning Torah, simply through learning Torah. But it's still part of the practicals because you have to learn Torah with your mouth. Because the Gemara says, the Talmud says, the moving of the lips is action. And meditation is not words. But you don't accomplish it because you're living in the world. In this world, maybe in the upper worlds you can learn Torah without your mouth. But in this world, you have to learn Torah with your mouth. Because think about it is not, you need Maisa. So you need to think about the Torah, but if the mitzvah over here is a mitzvah's Maisa. Limit of Torah is a mitzvah. Learning a Torah is a mitzvah. How do you do this learning of Torah with a mitzvah? Is through saying the words of Torah. Not only you think about it with your mind, you have to say it. You don't accomplish it with thought alone. And so to prayer. Prayer must be done with words. So even prayer has to ultimately come down to words. So self-understood prayer has all three levels in it. It has words, that's action. Prayer is the heart. It has emotion. And you should know who you're davening to, which is the intellect. So that's the journey. So if I want to accomplish, if I want to, through my prayer, accomplish something not only in this world, but also in Gan Eden, I need to have all three levels. I need to say the words of davening. That's the lower Gan Eden. I need to go a little higher through Avos Hashem. The hafta prayer needs to be done with love. And ultimately, I need to know who am I davening to. And that is the machshava of prayer. So since both Torah study and prayer requires action, even the garments that are created by devout Torah study and prayer are considered derived from the tangible active aspect of the mitzvah. They too are garments that derive from the light of Kesed ultimately. So everything comes from, since everything comes from Kesed Elyon, which is the Ratzon, and even higher, the tithing of idea 4, you're davening. If you can create, that's why davening is called like a ladder, because through your davening, through speech, thought, and action, you can create this ladder. You can go higher and higher. And certainly so, considering that the superiority of devotion, kavana, your mind, over speech and action, we all know. We spoken about this many times. Kavana, the concept of intention. The Eibishter gave you Ladas Hashem, to know God, which is your brains, which is higher than thought and speech. I mean, which is higher than speech and action. And so much as devotion can create garments for the soul in the upper Gan Eden. Ein mitzvah atzma is not due to its own merits, as the loving and the service of God, but because of the radiance of the supernal will. What does that mean? When a mitzvah is performed, the radiance of the supernal will is more manifest and more spiritual aspect in the devotion and loving intent than the tangible physical aspect. So that's the reason. For ultimately, godliness and spirituality is more manifest in a spiritual concept than in a physical concept. But therefore, self-understood, when a person learns Torah, when a person does davening, when a person does mitzvahs, he should do it all levushim. That's why it's important to do it all the garments. It's to make sure to do the mitzvah, if that's the action, to do it with love, that's the emotion, and to do it with intellect. That's the seichel. That's the concept of a person's intellect. He needs to try to do it with all three garments. Because all these three garments, we explained, they are the garments that give you the capability to receive the tainug, your delight in Gan Eden. So therefore, it's important now that when I learn Torah with all three levels. I learn Torah with my mouth. That is action. I learn Torah with my heart. I put a fire into it. I put a love into it. And I learn Torah to understand it. And that's my understanding. And then in Mitzvah Hashem, after 120 years, if that's Gan Eden, I will ultimately, my neshama will receive all levels of Gan Eden. It will receive from the lower level, and ultimately it will reach up to the higher levels of Gan Eden, because it has the levushin, it has the garments that gives it that capability. And this is Kamesh's Bible. I've explained this in the beginning of Tanya, chapter 38. Ayin Sham, see over there. And Alter Rebbe explains there that the illumination and the supernal will that shines within the devotion that accompanies an action is likened to a soul. That's if you remember that chapter of Tanya. So it's like the neshama, the mitzvah itself is like a body, but the neshama is the emotion, and that's why it's important to have an emotion. Why? Because if without the emotion, it's like almost like it could be like a dead body. Relative to the illumination that shines in the action itself, which is likened to the body or a garment for the soul. The difference is thus only in the degree of contraction or emanation of this radiance. That's what the point is. So therefore, that's why Ava is compared to a fire. And that's important. From above, it's clear that even the garments for the soul that are created for the devotion and feeling that accompany Torah and prayer are results only for the radiance. That's all because It comes from we should realize that our devotion to God, our avos Hashem, everybody has avos Hashem. Every Jew has the love of God. And that's what you're commanded to love God. And because you have this love of God, it all comes from the roots. That's what the Eibishter wanted. So everything comes. Why do we do a mitzvah? Why do we do a mitzvah? Why do we do commandment? Because that's the will of God. Why do we have avos Hashem? Because that's also the will of God. Why do we learn Torah? Because that's the will of God. It all comes from the rotzen and tainig of the Eibishter. It all comes from the will and the delight of God that the Eibishter gave us, the Eibishter gave within us, his own rotzen and his own tainig. So that's why we are pushed to do Torah, to learn Torah, and to do mitzvahs, and to love the Eibishter. It's something that comes from a higher place. It's not only something that comes from ourselves, that we have this. We are given this. We are given this. That's why you said, Hasheinu Mateo. A Jew has to wake up in the morning and say, Hasheinu Mateo Chalkeinu, Umanoyim Garaleinu. How happy we are with our lot that the Eibishter gave us this, that we can create in ourselves a rotzen, a will, and a tainug, and a delight in physical mitzvahs, in the actual mitzvah. We can find a delight in love of the Eibishter, love of God, and we can find ultimately a delight in our limud haTorah, in the learning of Torah that we do every single day. Because the Torah is a result from the radiance of the supernal will, which is the supernal Kesed Elyon. So that's the Kesed. Alter Rebbe, if you realize where he's going with this, self-understood, is that's why it's important to learn Torah Sheba'al Peh, because it's Kesed. Torah Sheba'al Peh is the Kesed, is the crown upon the Torah itself. So learning halacha is the crown. It's the crown. And by learning that, you reach up to the highest levels, Ratzeh, and the will of God and tainig. And we all know that just like in a human being, when he has a Ratzeh, he has a will, and he has a tainug, nothing can stop him. Nothing can hold him back. He accomplishes much more if he can create a Ratzeh, a will, and a tainug, a delight in what he does. And the more we can create that Ratzeh, that will, and that tainug, well, everything else will be drawn after it, because it's much higher. That's why it's considered a crown. It's much higher. It comes from a more elusive place. That's why we learned in Tanya that the other 10 spheres have a place. Even Chachma has its place. It's in the brain. But Ratzin and Tainug has no place. It's an encompassing light. It's more of a driving force than something that comes. It goes everywhere in essence. It accomplishes, it transforms, it does everything. And that's the beauty. So a person should realize that maybe Chachma comes from him, but Ratzin and Tainug comes from the God. That he has a Ratzin LaKadosh Baruch Hu. That he has a will and a Tainug. And what in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, in Torah, and Mitzvah, it comes from a much deeper place. And it's all there for one reason. It should uplift him. It should uplift his total being. It should give all his essence, his whole encompassing, his whole concept in life. It should all be drawn to something that's much higher than him. Beautiful, beautiful concept, my dear friends. Today is the 22nd day of the month. Yes, 22nd day of Cheshvan. The Tillim, the Psalms of the day, is chapter 106. And 107. You do those chapters, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes today in the Yom Yom, one of the teachings of the Maggid HaMezritch. Maggid HaMezritch was the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, student of the Baal Shem Tov. Heard from the Alter Rebbe when he was in Mezritch for the first time in the summer of 1764. Until Pesach of 1765, the Alter Rebbe went to Ritz Maggid. This is if he was even married. He went to Ritz Maggid from summer of 1764. He stayed till Pesach of 1765. In those days, to travel was not an easy thing. So when they went to the Rebbe, they stayed there a couple of months. He stayed there for half a year. He said, the Mishnah Maggid said, Anoichi Hashem Alekech. Anoichi Asisi Shemayim V'Aretz. The verse says, Anoichi Asisi Shemayim V'Aretz. I have made the earth and created man upon it. It's Yeshayahu. It's a person Tanakh. Let me just get the Hebrew, exactly the Hebrew word, the Hebrew pasuk. I hate to say a pasuk. Anoichi Asisi Aretz v'Adam aleh barasi. That's the pasuk. I have created the earth. V'Adam aleh barasi, and I made the earth, and upon it created man. That's the pasuk in Yeshayahu. Anoichi, so the Maggid said, Anoichi, he who is true I. He's a true I. Anoichi. I. Who is a true I? God. Unknown to and concealed from even the loftiest emanation. Eibishter is really I. Nobody's really the true I. That's a problem in English. The I is capital. There's no true I. There's only one I in the world, and that is God, because He's a true entity in the world. Everything else comes from something else. So what do you mean you, I? Who are you? You're here because your parents are here. Your parents are here because God's here. You're here because God's here, whatever. So the true I, Anoichi Hashem Alekech, I am God, your God. So because He's unknown. Clothed His blessing essence through numerous condensations to give rise to the emanation and creatures. To Srafim, the angels are called Srafim, Chayes, Efanim, all these angels, and worlds beyond number. Through countless condensations, I made this physical world, and upon it, I created man. Man is the end purpose of creation. And Barasi is the end purpose of man. Barasi, I've created, has a numerical equivalent to 613. Beis, Reish, Saf, Yud is 613. The numerical scriptural commandments. As the book of Pardes, the Kabbalah states in Sefer HaBoyer, said the attribute of Chesed. It says the following statement: the attribute of Chesed comes before God, and He says, "Master of the universe, since the days of Avram have been the earth, I have not had performed my task. You created Midas HaChesed, but Avram Avinu took over my job, so to say, because Avram Avinu stands and serves instead of me, my steed, because Avram is a soul clothed in a body, occupying himself with hospitality to strangers as a means of disseminating the idea of God in this world, is actually on a higher plane and level than the attribute of kindness of Atzilus. So the chesed of the world of Atzilus comes to God and says, Avram Avinu put me out of a job because I am a chesed Atzilus, but Avram actually surpasses me. This complaint, said the attribute of chesed before the Holy One, is an expression of envy of Avram's service by the attribute of kindness of Atzilus. In essence, the Maggid said that a person should realize that when he does chesed, so he might think, we learn chassidus, that the chesed, Atzilus, the highest level of chesed. Chesed, Atzilus, chesed, the world emanation, is envious of your act of kindness. That's the teaching. That a person should realize that even though there's great spiritual elevations above us, but they're envious of mine and your act of kindness. That's why the Mishnah says, it's better one mitzvah in this world than all the spiritual worlds. Because all the spiritual worlds are envious of my act of kindness, my learning of Torah, and my doing good deeds, and my prayer, etc., etc. Therefore, we should realize that even though we learn about all these lofty elements, worlds, godliness, etc., in these worlds, but it's nothing in comparison to a human being doing an act of kindness. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I want to wish you all a great day. I want to invite you all at 10 o'clock to come to Chabad, come and learn together. 10 o'clock, we have a class, and then the Parsha of the week at 10 a.m. and or come on Zoom and come and learn together. 10 a.m. tonight. 10 a.m. today. Sorry, 10 a.m. today. Okay, don't come at night. 10 a.m. today. And Mitch, we'll see you all tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the Chitas. Have a wonderful and beautiful